Everybody, welcome to Coffee with Jon. Looking forward to talking with Nathan Krasnick. Nathan, it's great to connect with you. I appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast. Director of Operations with Masterworks. Formerly, you've been doing that for almost 5 years, and then before that, over at Sotheby's. I just want to tell everybody what Masterworks is quickly before we jump in. If someone were to go to masterworks.com, it says you're invited to join a members-only community to learn, network, and invest in the art market. If someone were to go down a little bit further, a little over $67 million distributed back to investors, sold 28 paintings out of over 500, each for a profit, distributing over $67 million back to investors, including amount invested. Monet, the list goes on and on. Okay. For those who don't know about Masterworks, define it for them in a sentence or two.
Yeah, so Masterworks essentially makes the investable segments of the art market investable. So we identify blue chip artist markets that we feel have the ability to generate attractive returns over a 3 to 10 year time horizon, and then we pick and choose artworks within each of those artist markets, and we make those artworks investable through Reg A securities, which are available via the masterworks.com website.
So you pick an artist, you purchase the art or pick a piece of art, and then you sell shares on the market for a piece of art, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah. We'll find an individual artwork. We'll essentially, for lack of a better word, securitize that artwork, and then we'll issue shares so investors can own a slice of that painting.
How much what's the minimum slice cost an investor?
Well, so every share that we issue is issued at $20 a share. So you have anywhere between, investors investing anywhere between $500 and $50,000 into a single artwork. We have over 70,000 investors now who are actively invested on the platform. Over 1 million users who have signed up.
So if I wanted to, if I went on your website, found an artist that I liked, I could invest $20.
Yeah, I mean, so you would start by having a call with one of our advisors. We have registered investment advisors who speak with every investor prior to investing, and they will go through a suitability call with you and just determine a recommendation for how much they feel you should be invested in the asset class given your risk profile, and then based on that recommendation, you can then decide how much you want to invest at that time. But yeah, it's as little as $20 per share.
So here's what I love about this your company and this market. So your mission at Masterworks is to make art investable to all. Companies founded in 2017. You're the first and you're the largest online art platform that lets you invest in multi-million-dollar artworks by artists like who?
All the names that you would recognize. So Andy Warhol, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Yayoi Kusama, Keith Haring, David Hockney, like all the big names. I mean, there's about 70 artists that we have approved for investment through the platform. Those aren't all available at any given time, but I think what's super interesting about Masterworks is a lot of people think that the art market is very data scarce and opaque. In reality, half of the transactions that occur in the art market every year occur at public auction, the other half privately. And what's so great about being the most active buyer in the art market is that we see a lot of that private sales activity. So we can take all the public auction data from the last 30 years, combine it with all the transaction data that we see on the private side, and then we can create indices and metrics to identify artist markets that we've measured performance in over time based on sort of this amazing proprietary database that we've created. So that's really, that's where our edge comes in, is our ability to really take a quantitative approach to selecting artist markets to invest in and make available to our investors.
Here's what I find pretty interesting, even more interesting than what you just said, is that you have 1 million users on your platform. And so my question is you talk about a very sophisticated way of getting an RIA on a call with each person that's interested in the platform, registered investment advisor. You're doing that for all 1 million people, users. I mean, that's a pretty one-on-one business model that I just think people would be interested in.
Yeah, so we're doing that with everyone before they invest. So if you become a user and you decide you don't want to invest, then we might not necessarily have had a call with you. But for a large portion of that 1 million users, we have had calls with them, and a lot of those, the 70,000 who have invested, have spoken with a registered investment advisor. And we've built out that investment advisory arm ourselves, so we don't use an external RIA to have those conversations. We have a team of experts really who are extremely knowledgeable about the art market and providing investment advice. So those are the people who are having calls with investors prior to their initial allocations to the asset class.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I think it says a lot about the platform and how you've grown the company since 2017. Having that level of sophistication to making sure that everybody is not just registering online, but the people who want to take the next step, you take a really one-on-one approach to it. I always find, I'm a business coach and I work with companies all over the globe. And, a lot of times when I'm talking to C-level execs who maybe feel disconnected from maybe the clients or their teams or, people, depending on how big the company is, I always suggest to them, just pick up the phone and call one client every single day. Pick up the phone and call one person in your company every single day. It's amazing what a phone call can do in the world of AI and in the world of technology. Just picking up the phone and talking to a human being goes a long, long way. And your platform, I think, shows the compounding effect of that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And we try and have as many touch points with our clients as possible, whether that's not only through email and through our mobile app, which is also great, but also just one-on-one conversations with the advisors, doing periodic portfolio reviews with existing investors to go over their allocation and what a lot of people aren't aware of, which we've been leaning into heavily over the last year and a half, is we've built out this amazing events sort of functionality. So we have a gallery space on the Upper East Side of New York, and obviously a ton of connections throughout the art world. And so we host events at museums, galleries, our own gallery on the Upper East Side, and we'll invite our clients to those events to see not only the artwork that they're invested in, but just other things going on in the art world. And at each of those events is an advisor who is there to talk to them about the asset class, about their investments, and that experiential part of the process has been, we found, super just really great for for client retention, and reinvestment rates, et cetera.
Yeah, it's huge. You guys are doing what you just shared, but how are you using AI in your at Masterworks?
We use it in a lot of different ways. We use it, and it's most heavily used, I would say, on the operational side and on the sales side. So for finance and operations, it's we have agentic workflows built into a ton of our workflows. So think of a good example. Right now, I'm actually working on building out an agentic AI agent that can interact with our budget model, create new forecasting for different business segments, and create new ad hoc analyses for board meetings, and that is something. Those are the types of projects that almost everyone at the company is working on. But when we use it within our sales processes as well.
Yeah.
For communicating with investors, managing pipelines, and then I think on the finance side, we've done a fantastic job, and it's really a testament to the rest of the team, not just myself, who've built up really on the accounting side like fantastic use cases for AI within the accounting parts of the business.
Yeah. Nathan, so talk to the listener who's listening right now and thinking, okay, I want to invest in some artwork. Do they invest in, do they have to keep their shares until you sell the piece of art? How does it work if they want to cash in? How are things priced along the way? Like, walk people through the process.
So it's a buy and hold strategy. There are no cash flows associated with the asset. So when an investor invests in a work of art on our platform, we'll tell them to expect it to be held for anywhere between 3 and 10 years, which is similar to sort of like a private equity type of investment. And then at a certain point in that life, we will exit the artwork, and whatever proceeds we generate from the sale of the artwork are distributed back to each of the investors in that asset.
Where does the art get held?
Yeah, so the majority of the art is held in storage in Delaware, and then we have a great museum program that we have stood up over the last couple of years, where we will lend out work to museums across the country and abroad. So there's a number of works that are out in the wild for investors to see, and then we have works kind of at our gallery space on the Upper East Side, but the majority of the work is held in Delaware and storage.
Did you study art? How did you get into the art field?
Yeah, so when I graduated from U of M, I graduated from the BBA program there at Ross, but had also minored in art history while I was studying there. And so when I graduated, I was working in a more traditional asset management job in Chicago. Continued to be interested in art and the art market, and was starting to collect a little myself, and just started to notice some overlap between like what I was doing in finance and investing and what I was seeing kind of going on in the art market. And I decided that there was potentially a way to combine those two interests. And so I went back to get my master's in art and business at a program called the Sotheby's Institute of Art. And that brought me to New York. While I was studying there, I started working for Sotheby's for a bit while I was finishing up that program. And then, fast forward to 5 years ago, I was hired by Masterworks, which was kind of the perfect blend of, what I was trying to do in finance and investing and the art market.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's finding a job right now. So you're a few years out, a handful of years out of U of M, but I think a lot of people graduating right now are having a really hard time finding a job. And what would you recommend they do to go the extra mile to actually find a job, separate themselves, differentiate themselves from other resumes that are on top of theirs?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's hard. I think, it's always been challenging for new grads to find, good roles coming out of college. I'm not in that position now, so I can't speak to if it's easier or harder than it was when I graduated. But I will say what new grads have now that I didn't, 12 years ago, 12 years ago, is AI. And so what I would be doing if I was, either a new grad or someone looking for work is now is probably the best time ever to be kind of, entrepreneurial and building businesses and creating products and widgets. And I would just be using AI, Claude Code to build little products, build stuff that I think is cool, and then use those projects to network with people that are working in similar fields or industries where there is sort of product overlap. And I would use that as, if that's on your resume, you say, I built this thing, and oh, by the way, it's actually very related to what the job that I'm applying for. I think that shows sort of like the entrepreneurial and initiative that a lot of companies are looking for right now from new grads.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest thing you can do, and networking is always super important.
Yeah.
I just think that's a good wedge in the door.
I think also being bolder is really, really important. I think you got to be bolder today. You got to pick up the phone. You got to call companies. You can't wait for them to call you. I think there's so many people applying for all these great jobs. I think employers are almost looking for people to show up in the lobby and pick up the phone and call, and they want to hear them leave a message and then call back. And I think there needs to be a level of boldness as far as what are you going to do to really try to get the job. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it is harder to get jobs, but I also think it's something I see is people being not as bold as they need to be.
Yeah.
You can't wait for the phone to ring today. You gotta make the call.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So Masterworks, your day to day, you've been there almost 5 years. What's the biggest lesson you've learned about business and/or art since you've been there?
The biggest lesson that I've learned, you've got to move fast. You've got to test everything.
Yeah.
You have to take a data, a data-driven approach to everything. And I think it's just like you got to be able to move quick. You have to be able to be flexible enough to change your mind when it comes to either exploring new business initiatives or product segments, and you got to be willing to try different things. You got to be willing to fail quickly. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from my time here so far, amongst many others.
What makes a great artist? I think to an amateur eye, you look at it and someone may think, person A is looking at it thinking, what's the big deal? person B sees a $10 million piece of art. Especially with like a new artist today, the Picassos and many of the other ones that you mentioned earlier, but how do you determine a great artist today? Like what is that?
Yeah. So do you want like the investment underwriting answer or the collector response,
the
kind of
response,
subjective?
I want the collector
theory.
response, the underwriter response, the data response, and the gut response. Because I think it's got to be a kind of a stew of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from this is not my investment response, but I think what commonality you see across, the greats, right, is an ability to speak to people and collectors through the work that you're making. I think you really need to be able to communicate a message that resonates with not just the broader public, but also with collectors. And I think that's part of why the gallery ecosystem is extremely important in the art market. All these artists started somewhere, right? Jean-Michel Basquiat's paintings were selling for $5,000 in 1982 when they were first being shown, and it was a couple gallerists with a good eye who took a bet on him, and put their resources and time and money behind him and other artists to profile their work and get it in front of collectors, that's sort of the foundation that every artist market is built on. So that's extremely important for an artist market to go from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And then once it's at 1, there are a lot of artists, not many, but a lot of artists who have got into 1. Once you're there, if you're thinking about it from an investing standpoint, then you need to look at the data. You need to look at sort of market transaction volume, over a long period of time. You need to look at the breadth and depth of collectors in that market. You need to look at institutional support from museums and galleries, and you need to really be able to see a clear trend of price growth over a lasting period of time, and a certain amount of transaction volume where you can with a high degree of confidence expect that artist's work to continue to appreciate at those rates.
Yeah.
But at Masterworks, we're really only looking at an artist once they've become very successful, right? We're not necessarily picking new artists who are just coming out of their grad programs. That's just not the investment model that we've set up.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool model. I think, before 2017, and I'm sure people thought, and I'd love to have I keep on using Picasso, but I'd love to have this artist or this artist, but can't afford it. And now they get to invest and have the best of both worlds if they can't fully invest in a piece themselves. I think it's great. All right, quick speed round, Nathan. Any book that's made a big impact on you?
Fiction or nonfiction, or doesn't matter? Okay, maybe I'll try and give you one of each. So one book that I find had a big impact on me that I read during my time in business school was Getting to Yes by who is it? William Fry and I think Roger Fisher. So that book is pretty foundational in negotiations. I've found it to be super impactful because, frankly, I think all of life is kind of just like one big negotiation.
Yeah.
And so that had a big impact on me. And then on the fiction side, I think John Steinbeck's East of Eden is one that I kind of come back to often. I just think it's beautifully written and reminds you that free will kind of shapes our fate and not really the other way around. So those are two that I would highlight.
All right, that's good. Your favorite artist?
My favorite artist on our platform?
On your platform or off your platform?
So my favorite artist on our platform, it's probably a tie between Ed Ruscha, who is a super prominent and significant LA-based artist, and Joan Mitchell, who is, frankly, in my opinion, maybe one of the top 3 best abstract expressionist artists ever. And so those are my 2 favorite artists on our platform.
Good. If you could have coffee with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and why?
I'm trying to think if there's an artist I would really like to get coffee with. I think maybe like Leonardo da Vinci. Like that'd be a cool one. Like the original Renaissance man.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting conversation.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Products aren't bought, they're sold.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Last question. Anybody, you've kind of answered this, but anybody who's interested in your platform, they can what?
They can go to masterworks.com and create an account and schedule a call with one of our advisors to talk about if art is suitable for their investment portfolio.
Great. Nathan, this was great. What a cool platform. What a great company that's been built. I love the sophistication of not only the product, but also the way that you go about the client interaction and taking everything really seriously and having kind of that one-on-one with your 70,000 and how you connect with them and guide them and advise them. I think it's another great example, which we talked about earlier, the importance of creating an experience for anybody who's on your platform and then wants to continually evolve, and take it to the next step. And in your case, be an investor of art. So there's no surprises, and they get their questions answered by an individual and not necessarily just AI. Not that companies can't use it for AI to answer certain things, but that one-on-one connection is so important. I think art is such a personal buy, and it sounds like that's the kind of the through line of the experience for the person who comes to your platform, your company, and ultimately is an investor. So this was great. This was great. If anyone wants to get a hold of Nathan, they can get a hold of him at masterworks.com. Thanks for sharing your story, Nathan. Congratulations. And you can reach me at jondwoskin.com. Thanks, Nathan.
All right. Thanks, John.